Okay, we're recording. Um, all right, how's it going, guys?
Very good.
We're on another episode of On That Ish with my co-host Issue X. How's it going, Ish?
What's up, Flav? We got a
Chilling.
special guest today.
Yeah, we have our guest Pam. This is going to be her first time on That Ish. She's been on Let's Get Serious a couple of times, and later on,
And I,
or even soonish, we should be joined by another special guest.
and I don't want to interrupt Flav, but I got to interrupt Flav because I've heard good things about you, Pam. I'm excited to actually get an opportunity to talk to you and see what you're about.
Thank you. Thanks. Same here. I'm pretty excited.
So, you know, and Flav is usually, he's really good about controlling flow and keeping things in line. But I kind of want to turn that over just a second and kind of give you reign, since it's your first time on that ish, to kind of just tell us a little bit about yourself, say some stuff to the people.
Okay. Well, my name is Pam. I live in Mount Vernon. Mike and I know each other from back in the day canvassing. I'm a nurse now. That's really about it. I'm interested in, everything that's happening in the world and in the country specifically. So it's nice to have a conversation with people.
Now, those are like key for me. Those are when you say things like, I'm interested in what's happening in the country. Well, there's a couple key things that you said that kind of sparks my interest. Like, one, I'd like to know what type of a nurse you are.
I'm a NICU nurse. So yeah.
That's tough. That's tough.
I'm actually in a level 2 NICU, which is the kids aren't sick. They're basically like, they just need like a couple days, maybe at the most.
So they're on their way to the floors?
They're on their way home,
Oh,
are you saying NICU?
So you're
NICU?
NATO intensive care.
Yeah, neonatal intensive care. Yeah.
So you're discharging them from the ICU home.
Yeah.
See, that's something I'm not used to. I used to work on a surgery floor, so I'm used to getting people coming from ICU to my floor.
Like a step down type of thing?
Right. Like they'd come out of, say someone got in a major car accident and they had to go into TICU. Right. And then they'd step down into, say, the surgery team would follow them on my floor, which was the surgery floor. It was like a step down floor.
Yep.
Right. Like once they no longer needed a bed in TICU or MI or CCU, they'd come down to my floor and then eventually to the rehab floor or home, one or the other.
Yeah. My patients aren't that sick. They're usually like 32, 33 weeks premature. So,
okay.
Yeah, they might need like a little oxygen therapy, but like only a couple days usually, and then they just.
So you're not seeing traumas?
No. Nope.
Is that what the T stands for in TICU? Trauma?
Trauma intensive care. You have CCU, which is critical care. You have MICU, which
medical
intensive care unit. And I don't know why I had a brain freeze there. Yep, these are the intensive care units, right? You have cardio, and you have like burn.
Yeah.
Neonatal.
Yeah, and I work.
They sound like good exercise units too.
Cardio and burn. I see what you did there, Flav. I see what you did there.
There might be something there. Exercise via the nurses.
Yeah.
Huh. Listen, so burn, at least, we were in the county hospital, and so the burn unit probably had, I wouldn't say any more than 3 beds, because burn is no fun.
No.
No fun. The patients in there, man.
Yeah, like I used to work at a pediatric rehab in Valhalla, and so we would get like the kids who were in the NICU and PICU, their rehab basically. So they were like vent dependent, or they needed wounds care, whatever it might be. And by far the burns were the worst. I mean, it's just horrifying.
Yeah, they got the whirlpool bath in there. It's man, burn is pretty horrifying. You're right. That's a great word. Horrifying.
Yeah, horrifying.
Like the smell, you know what I mean? Like I was a clerk. So at the time when I was a floating clerk, one of the worst places for me. Two of the worst places were CCU and Burn, when I had to float into Burn. CCU because, you know, you could be talking to a patient and then, you know, 10 minutes later they're dead.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I mean? And Burn, and you know, those patients are in an indescribable level of pain that you're horrified
Yeah.
for them.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
you're horrified just from being exposed to them.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I can't imagine anything. Honestly, I can't imagine anything worse than that, and like surviving it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're in a lot of pain the entire time. Like
Yeah,
the entire time.
and even after they leave, like, because in the rehab we would have to do burn care on the kids, so they already had their skin grafts, and their skin grafts were somewhat healing, and then
It's super sensitive.
we would have to put like, well, they use cocoa butter, actually, was like the cream that they use. We would have to like massage their grafts and then put on they had to wear compressive clothing. It was just a nightmare. It was a nightmare. It was horrible. So yeah, even when they were healing, even when they left you guys, it was still just terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. So one of the other things that you mentioned was you're interested in, and I'm going to paraphrase you, the state of things in the world, but more specifically our country. And I'd like to know from what perspective you're stating that, like what side of things, not necessarily that side of things, because I think side is just too hard, you know, one way or another, or, you know, A, B, or C. I just like to know where you fit in and what your perspective is on the state of things, as you say it.
Well, I mean, I can't even really explain the way that I am feeling about things, because it's just so unbelievable, I think, that it's unbelievable the state that American politics and government has come to, I think. Like, I think it's just mind-blowing. I've been watching the impeachment stuff on CNN, and I still just can't believe like how partisan things have come to the point where there's like no like dignity left in holding office, it seems, you know. And it really just strikes me how just chaotic, you know, our society has been.
So you take umbrage with the way that politicians represent themselves in office?
Not just that, but like what that represents on a smaller scale. Like, do these people really represent the people that from their districts? Like, is this really how, you know, a section of our nation feels? Like, I'm just shocked by the answer is obviously yes, because why else would they be doing it? You know, but it's just shocking to me, like how, I don't know.
Now, I want to talk about the temperature, right? When you speak about how our nation feels, are you speaking about and now I am hardlining it. Are you speaking about a specific side or another, or both?
So that's interesting. I'm speaking mostly about the right, obviously, and like not about the left on like a large scale, just generally, you know, like, you know, I'll give you an instance. There was a sketch on Saturday Night Live a couple weeks ago about like this diner in Georgia, like now that Georgia's blue. And so these two guys went into this diner or whatever, and everybody was just like a hard line liberal because now Georgia's blue, right? So they were just like, you know, we don't like those kind of people around here, like the MAGA people, which I agree with. But it was just interesting, like how they portrayed them as what we portray a lot of the left as, I think, you know, and that I think there could be room for.
Now, hold on. I just want you to clarify, because I'm a bit confused. How do you mean what we portray a lot of the left as versus what you're saying how they were portrayed?
Yeah, no, like how white liberals basically are just so passionate and so made up, like there's like they've made up their minds about things, right?
Almost zealots.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't think of the word. Yeah, exactly. There's like this zealotry on the left, which I mean, to a point I agree with, right? Because I agree with a lot of things that they're very passionate about. But I think that also that fuels the right's demonization of us.
Mm. So you're saying that in some cases we're guilty of the same things towards the right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I have been in agreement with that for a long time,
Yeah.
though I don't think that there are things that, like, I don't make excuses for some of the zealotry on the right, like none.
Mm-hmm.
On the same token, I'm not willing to overlook not the zeal on the left. I'm for that. I'm for fervence. I'm for zeal. My concern is how it's directed. You know, I feel like I don't want to become a hypocrite.
Right. Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, it's about how that zeal or fervence is directed. What. So, you know, I want to let you continue. And
Yeah.
obviously, Flav, at any time, you know, Flav at any time, Flav, you know, jump in with whatever. You know, I know you often have some, you know, very insightful things to point out that, you know, I may have missed.
What do you mean when you're saying that the way that the zeal on the left is directed? What do you
Well,
mean by that?
Oh, go ahead.
So Pam, I want to give you the floor on that. I just want to say, from my interpretation of what Pam is saying, especially in regards to like the way the people wearing the MAGA hats were treated in the hard blue restaurant, for instance, sometimes I think some things just aren't necessary. Meaning, if you're walking around with a MAGA hat, have fun in your MAGA hat, right? Like, I don't want to. I'm not rolling my window down to, you know, shout an expletive or an insult or to let you know that I'm opposed to what you that's what I mean.
Right.
Okay.
And I also don't think that I'm necessarily smarter than you or, you know, a better person than you, or not necessarily sometimes. But, you know, it's like I have these friends that are just, they're atheists, right? And that's it. They're atheists. The end. They won't listen to anybody. If anyone tries to talk about anything even remotely spiritual with them, no, forget it. They're atheists. And to
It's
me,
very difficult navigating people like that.
exactly, exactly. To me, that's the same as being a fundamentalist Christian. I mean,
Mhm.
there's differences, right? Because
You're
they're
preaching right now.
exactly, exactly. Not only are you preaching, you're shutting off any communication with anybody.
Mhm.
You know, it's there's no exchange of ideas when you have such like a hard line.
Yeah.
And without exchange of ideas, there's no growth.
Right.
This is profound because I am what I guess the typical term to describe me would be a fundamentalist Christian. At least that's how I would be labeled or identified as. And I 100% agree. I first and foremost believe in an exchange of ideas. Like, every conversation that you have with someone should be an opportunity to learn and grow.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, you know, there's a quote that I like to use that, like, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Right.
You
Right.
know? So
Yeah, just for the record, I think by standard definition of fundamentalist, you wouldn't fit that bill.
I mean, it's just the easiest thing for me to say to someone that, you know, if anyone inquired, right, about my beliefs spiritually or what have you, the easiest thing to say, you know, Flav, I often say to you that I'm not a Christian, but for someone that I did not know, that would be the best way for them to begin to understand without me having to go into a speech. You understand what I'm saying? Or preaching at it, you know what I mean? You know, the
Right,
best thing.
but just for the record, when you talk about a fundamentalist, that's the opposite.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't think I'm a fundamentalist. You're right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Like, you believe and follow the tenets of Christianity. However, you cannot abide by the way that people who call themselves Christians act.
Right.
And
And
so
to
you can't
and
associate.
I'm not going to argue against science either.
Right. Okay. Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I mean,
You're gonna,
I kind of took the same view. Like, I believe in the tenets of Christianity. I try to follow them to the best of my ability as a human. But like,
mhm.
I also I can't align my views and my ideals with the majority of people that espouse themselves to be Christians.
Right. Right. I totally get it.
Yep.
Totally get it. I feel the same way.
Yep.
I feel the same way. There's certain things that, as someone who considers himself to be spiritual and tries to practice or live a spiritual life, try to lead with grace, I feel like that's the operative term for me, leading with grace. That means I can't point fingers at people. I can't, question people's desire to have equality. I can't, you know what I mean? Like, these are things that I can't find myself doing as someone that chooses to lead with grace.
Exactly.
I don't think they exist in the same space.
I agree completely.
So speaking of which, um, it just so happens that all three of us have seen the movie Cry Freedom. I saw it like about a month or so ago. Pam, you saw it today, right? And Ish, I don't know how long it was ago that you've seen it.
Probably 20 plus years ago,
Wow.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I
maybe
want to
longer,
know.
30
I
years ago.
want to know, like, Pam, what you think about the movie?
Well, again, I only watched half of it. Yeah, I had to take a break from it. But I okay, I had a couple thoughts, right? First of all, I didn't really know much about the history of apartheid in South Africa, first of all. So it was interesting learning about it, like learning what, Black people actually lived through with the townships, which I assume were like the Jewish ghettos. It's what it kind of seemed like to me. There was a lot of association.
That sounds right.
Yeah, there was a lot of association for me between what the Jews went through in Europe in the 30s and what the Native Africans went through, in the 70s and 80s during apartheid.
Yeah, and just
Well,
for
Having
the sake of our
just to add to that, they went through that for not over 100 years in South Africa. Well over
and
100
and
years in
just for the
South
sake
Africa.
of our viewers, we're talking about Cry Freedom. Was that 1993 that came out, or
dude, I think
was
it was
that
like
even earlier? No,
No, it was
83.
earlier than that. It was in
Oh,
87.
was that
late.
80s?
Yeah, it was in the late 80s. I saw it in
Okay.
elementary school. I
Yeah.
saw it
Okay.
30 plus years ago.
Okay, so it's one of Denzel's earlier movies, maybe even the first. I'm not sure, but
Not the
certainly one of his
first.
earlier. Okay, one of his earlier movies, and then there's Kevin Kline in there, and
It
it's
was
about
certainly Denzel's first major like role on that level.
yeah, and of course it's about the activist Steve Biko, who was what country was he from?
Wasn't he from Johannesburg? I don't recall.
I thought he was from
In South Africa.
another. I thought he was from another country, and then they were going back and forth. I thought from his country to South Africa, but I could be wrong. I thought they mentioned. I thought they mentioned the country several times in the movie.
I know the movie bored me to sleep as a kid. And then I watched it again at some point in time, maybe when I was in the military, and obviously I was older, still young but older, and I was able to watch it with a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was from South Africa, but I might have missed.
I did too.
Yeah.
I thought so as well.
But what I thought was interesting too was that they had to announce, I guess, what their tribe was before they said their names. Is that what they were doing? Like, so when he was stopped on his way to Cape Town, right? When they caught him, and he had to show them his papers. He didn't say his name was Steve Biko. He said something and then Steve Biko. Was
Oh,
that
the
his?
like they had to announce where they were from. Yeah, I guess that's part of showing your papers or something.
But it was like he was saying his name.
Hmm.
What was
I
it?
wonder if
Was
it
it
was
Bantu?
tribal acknowledgement.
Was it Bantu?
Yeah,
Was
yeah, yeah,
what he
yeah.
was saying?
Yeah, is that his name
Um,
or is that?
well, that's a good question. Yeah, it puts it here like it's his name, but Bantu I also thought was a tribal affiliation.
But that might be a cultural thing as well, right? Like your name is affiliated with your tribe. I
Well,
don't know
yeah,
though.
that's what we're
I'm just
well
throwing that out there for
that's
speculation.
Yeah.
no, that's what we're saying. That's what we're trying to figure that out. It says he was born Bantu Stephen Biko. But you're right. He was South African. For some reason, I thought they kept mentioning a different country, maybe he was affiliated with or spent some time in. But yeah, I mean, besides the obvious apartheid stuff, like anything else that you took from the movie, like what did you think about? Hold on, Matt's coming in. Like, what did you think about Kevin Kline's character?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like on the surface, he seemed like an ally, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
he was giving people jobs and he was telling the story and he was obviously like a friend of Steve's. But I read a lot about like the white savior, like in the
Hmm.
help, how the girl was the one to publish all the stories and get all the all the glory for it and all the
Uh-huh.
acclaim for it. And to me, it felt like almost the same thing.
Wait, what girl?
And in the help, the movie The Help.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
like, go ahead.
so the thing with Kevin Kline with the white savior complex, it's interesting, right? Like his is weird, right? Because at once he feels a certain way, carries himself a certain way. He certainly is compassionate for, the plight of the people. But in that process, and which is why I think it is what you're saying, but I think it's weird, a weird form of it. You know, there's a scene in the movie Amistad where, the white abolitionist is so passionate and he has so much zeal for, you know, being an abolitionist that he's finds himself chastising Morgan Freeman's character for not having enough zeal. And Morgan Freeman says to him, some people hate slavery more than anything except for the slave. And that's something that I felt Kevin Kline kind of demonstrated in that film. And this is through the eyes, my interpretation through the eyes of Flav, who's seen it and was describing scenes to me. And it seems like there were things that should have been apparently obvious to Kevin Kline and Stephen Biko's character that he just overlooked. Like his intellect, his ability to articulate himself. Like he overlooked that these things are just normal things that all people demonstrate rather
Hey,
than
let's pause for a second and acknowledge Matt. What's going on, Matt Brown?
What's up, everybody?
All right,
hey Matt, good to have you,
AKA
good to have you back.
Argyle.
Good to be back. Good to be back. What now?
I said AKA Argyle. I forgot about
Yeah.
the nickname.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to do characters because I thought we'd be touching on some stuff I don't want to be silly about. Probably.
yeah,
right?
that's fine.
We will be.
I still remember you as Argyle. But
Yeah, no,
I definitely want to
character or
segue
not.
back to. I definitely want to segue back to some things that
There's multiple
Pam
great
said.
Argyles throughout the history, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we do that, I definitely want to segue back to some things that Pam said and bring you in on it, Matt. And I want to get your perspective,
Okay.
Pam, on what we just talked about with the white savior complex. I'd like to get your perspective on that, really quickly, and not to rush you.
Yeah, I'm the white male.
Yeah. So Pam, I want to get your perspective, and then Matt, I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and just say a few things as well. So,
okay,
Pam,
Yeah.
you have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it just seems that, as I'm watching it, I've thought about things I've read. I actually thought about some things we were talking about last time we spoke, Mike, about how, like, it seemed to me almost like Steve Bilko's character, like he was almost like the side story of Kevin Kline's like progression as a human being, right? Like he was just like kind of like a prop, you know? And it did, like, the movie wasn't really about him. It was to a degree because I learned about him, right? I
Oh,
didn't.
about Steve, you mean? You mean
Mhm.
it wasn't really about Steve?
No, it wasn't. It was about this like white journalist who had this, epiphany that, hey, Black people just want to have their own lives and live like they want to live in their own country. And he
Yeah.
had to have this like epiphany before it could
And they're
happen.
competent and they're capable.
Yeah, exactly. And oh, he can speak so well. Where is he really from? What's his real background? You
Right.
know?
He says that straight up one time to Steve Biko's character, and then Steve Biko's friends kind of like make fun of that for a second
Yeah,
or
yeah.
so. So they straight up acknowledge that.
Yep.
So I think this is a good point for Matt, if you don't mind taking the floor and just
Yeah, sure.
telling everyone a little bit about yourself and
I'm busy. Go. Sorry, my kid's coming in here. Well, I'm from Buffalo. Originally from Las Cruces. That's in New Mexico. And I grew up in the Old First Ward. It's a heavily Irish community in part of Buffalo. I was raised by my grandparents. I'm pretty old timey. I like things the way they were used. I'm a conservative, but I'm a liberal conservative. And I don't. I guess that would be some people like to call me a communist, a socialist, maybe. I have tending views to that. Might be a little polarizing, but everybody should be open to their own opinions. And when it comes down to it, I'm a pretty decent person. I like
so
to make people laugh is my main goal in my life.
so let's break that down. What does it mean to be a liberal conservative?
What do you mean? Like I don't like uh neoliberalism. Like everything is wrong. Like everything is
So like cancel
instantly.
culture, for instance.
Yeah, the cancel culture is the worst. One of the worst things that could have that's where I'm watching our culture generally. Like you say boo, and you're instantly your whole career is over. And like some people, like they're dragging Stan Lee now for things that happened, and so there a lot of it is hearsay, but still people want to drag him through the mud. So I find that that's just as bad. Any type of culture, whether it's on the right or left, that goes to extremism is wrong. Like we can't have absolutions in our world.
Okay. I have some thoughts on that, but before I get into that, I'd just like to hear some other examples of what it means to be a liberal conservative.
I don't know. I conservative to me is like Theodore Roosevelt is a conservative, and then I like a lot of the policies of environmentalism, but a lot of that is the I guess a lot of Democrats are or left. You can't really even say Democrat or Republican because the whole system is so backwards now that one side is indisputable from the other at some points.
Yeah, I think that there is certainly it's hard to distinguish one side from the other. That's something that I
until
felt
you get into
for
the
some years.
extremism. And so like I like to distinguish myself as I would be more of a centralist if like I don't
A right-leaning centralist, a left-leaning centralist,
I
firmly in the middle.
probably more left.
Mhm.
I think that everybody deserves a chance and some people need a little more help. So I have a lot of, and I believe in unions. I believe, all the things the social things that made us great in this country. tree.
Okay.
The real
Okay.
great things.
If
that's
Flav-
very interesting because when I told my folks that I was a steward for our union and that we were finally getting a union together, they were like really happy for me. But my folks are like, they're like Trump folks,
Really?
So it's like the union thing used to not be a polarizing thing before these like polarizing people kind of like went through and like cut up our country and sections and started splitting it
I think the worst thing
apart.
I should let you finish.
Well, no, just
Conspiracy
the
theories.
idea is we used to agree on these things, right? Like the country
Right.
wasn't so polarized. Whether you
It's
were right or
interesting.
left, Democrat or Republican, unions were like an American thing. It was a good thing.
Right,
I was
and
going to say the
everybody-
same thing. I echo Flav's sentiments in that it's interesting that I didn't know that it was a polarizing or divisive thing. I've always known like unions in particular to be, for the working class, whether they be, regardless of their politics, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's something that I've always seen, and especially if you're talking coming out of, say, like, any of the depressions, that's, certainly conservatives show up to the party when it comes to supporting unions, you know what I mean? As much as, liberals do.
You can have both a conservative that's either side, though. That's what I mean. That's why I had the preference.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
You can have somebody that's, I want to conserve oil rights, or I want to conserve. That's not the type of like I think we should be looking into better ways than using plastic and promoting the oil industry. Like that stuff is absurd now. Like we're better than that at this point. We're poisoning the very food source. It's gotten to an extreme where we got to do something now. So that's my conservative nature, is conserve resources.
Hey,
Okay, so direct question, hardline question. How
Sure.
did you feel about President Trump? How did you
Like
feel about
like at
that
first,
took
or
place
like all throughout? Like, do we
Give-
want to
break
like,
it down?
do
Like,
I
how
want
did
to
you
give
feel?
you a full on, like, as a white man, like my breakdown? Because like I didn't like Hillary. Let's just be honest. Not because she's a woman, and not because she's a warmonger. Like, so
I mean,
like
that's
I
the
looked
reason
at it
why
as
I wasn't
very
supportive of the
unbiased.
Clintons, because of warmongering. But go on.
No, not now. Okay. So I didn't want to vote for. I didn't vote for Trump either, but I watched it as an impartial person, and I was like, man, he sold people. That's the way I looked at it at first, and I gave the man a chance as an American. Hey, go do what you gotta do. Do your work. He didn't do a damn thing. And if anybody supported him now or supports him now, they're a lunatic, and they've lost their mind, and everybody needs to jump ship from this man, because he has nothing but lunacy to sell you. He has no plans. Like I seen an interesting thing. Somebody was like, "Oh well, I guess we're not going to see his health care plan ever." Like the man kept like the kid in high school is, "Oh, I'll give you my homework next week." And like we're America, we're like the teacher. We're the ones who grade him. We can't keep letting this man, like, obviously gone, but we can't let his family should be impeached. The whole entire genetic line should be impeached. But that ain't gonna happen. That's ludicrous.
So another Trump can never run for
Never,
office.
ever.
A
I
lifetime
don't care if
ban.
they change their name, but if they have to blood test the president before he starts campaigning. Like, sorry, bro, your DNA comes up Trump 50. It's just 50%, or you're only 5% Trump, but that counts.
We're seeing that in the 13th century. Your DNA traces back to 13th century.
2021.
The same source as the Trumps.
We've got less than a 2-minute warning, so folks know.
Okay.
So just to develop a plan, I assume, do folks want to go on again for another 40 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I
Oh,
got.
okay.
I
So
cleared it today. Like I just haven't been. I haven't felt good. Like I'm getting old stinks. Like
yeah, it
it's
does.
bottom
It does.
line.
I
Bottom
could have told
line.
you that a few years ago.
Bottom line.
It's
But
horrible.
you know, whatever. Life is life.
Yeah. Um. Well, yeah, that was good. Have you seen the movie Cry Freedom?
No, I have
Oh,
not.
okay.
Should I
Yeah,
see
it's
that?
worth a watch.
Okay. See,
Um.
here's the thing with movies and me. Like I love movies. You've seen a few movies with me in your day. I love
Yeah.
movies. Love them. I seen a ton. Like I forget what I see. So like I may
Yeah.
have seen it, but
Me too.
I would know if I've seen something like that. I know I think I know the movie you're talking about, but
Yeah, it's Denzel, Kevin Kline, late '80s, about the activist Steve
I love
Biko
'80s movies.
and
We talked about this
South
the other
Africa.
day.
Yeah,
I love '80s
South
movies.
Africa.
Not really an 80s movie. I mean, it was
Yeah.
made
Well,
in the 80s.
Yeah, it was made right. It was
but
made in the
not
'80s.
they're just like any movie. I have this theory that we were talking about that I think it was 84 to 85. I think I said 83 to 84, but it's like in that era is the zenith of all movies. And like every era,
Well,
like
because so many good
Terminator,
movies came out.
I know.
Karate Kid,
That summer.